What's up, Carolina fans? Welcome back to the Carolina Sports Update after a little bit of time off for a holiday. Went up to visit my family in North Carolina. Got back to some roots. Had a great time up there, and I am back on the air again. Catch us up with some of the goings on over the holiday break. Not a whole lot, given the nature of the holidays, but we did get some bowl games in for our college teams, college football teams. College basketball continued on, got a couple games in there, and then Carolina Panthers, of course, Hurricanes too, and the Hornets continue to play through the holiday season, and we'll get caught up on them and all those scores. But first, before we get to all that, we are going to break it down with a couple of sponsors, including some new folks coming in. I hope you take a listen. We got some really cool apparel coming out here with Vital Apparel. Looks like a really awesome partner we picked up with all your workout needs. So let's just take a break and get to those ads.
Hi, eSports Radio fans. This show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clanking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. iSports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Like I said, really cool new ad partner we've got there in Vital Apparel. Looking forward to working with them a lot more. Always love it when you've got great companies like Vital who give back and donate to things like mental health. It's always been an important cause to me. Being in the military, really stress the importance of our soldiers, sailors, airmen, guardians on the importance of mental health, seeking help when you need it, asking for help, reaching out to others to see if they need help. And so really glad that we've been able to partner with a brand like Vital who takes it as seriously and treats it as something that's really important to them as well. So really great to see them come on board, and looking forward to working with them going forward. All right, let's get into some games and talk some scores. We'll talk, of course, first about our Carolina Panthers. And not kind of an up and down couple of weeks for the Panthers. Played Dallas, not a game that anybody really wants to remember. Pretty tough loss there with that. But then a really nice bounce back. And next week against Arizona, Carolina looked pretty sharp for the most part. Took it into overtime. Arizona was able to hang with Carolina through most of the game. And then tied it up in the end, took it into overtime. But Carolina, Chuba Hubbard, not one to repeat his last overtime performance against Tampa Bay. Wasn't about that life, and took the game-winning touchdown to the house, walked it off for Carolina, got the W against Arizona, ended their hopes for the playoffs this year. And really got to play spoiler. Bryce Young looked sharp. Again, as he continues to play, we're really seeing him gain confidence, be able to run the offense, be able to take command out there on the field, and be in charge. And then also dropping in some pretty good passes out there. Really seen his accuracy dial in over these last 6 or so games, as opposed to, how he started the season, how he played a good part of last season, where I just felt like a lot of the passes were overshot a lot of times. And now we're seeing him kind of get dialed in a lot more. Unfortunately, not in this game, but in some of these other games, and in the game we'll talk about here soon, not getting a lot of help from his receiver core. Adam Thielen, the bright spot there, guys, I think he's 36 years old, ageless wonder I saw on Twitter. That guy has just been an outstanding target for Bryce. Was last year and has been again this year. Continues to be a very dependable set of hands for Bryce Young. Jalen Coker, of course, undrafted free agent coming out this year, rookie, had a couple really nice plays as well. Has shown that he's got some great speed and great hands to go with it. I really actually wish they would go after him a lot more and target him a lot more often, especially with some of those downfield shots. He's shown that he can do it and keep up with it. Unfortunately for the Panthers, their first round draft pick, number 32 pick, Xavier Legette, has not shown the hands that you'd want from a potential number one wide receiver. Had in yesterday's loss to Tampa Bay, that was a 14-48 drumming. I got to be present for that here at Raymond James, and it was not fun, man. I'll tell you what. It was good to be out there with my buddy D, but he's a Tampa Bay guy, and so I got to hang out with him, enjoy the game. But that first half was pretty good. Played pretty tight, kept it interesting. First quarter, Tampa opened it up in the second quarter. Carolina tried to keep it a little bit interesting with that last second first half touchdown pass to Adam Thielen. Unfortunately, we're just not able to keep up in the second half. The defense, unfortunately, totally lost without Josie Jewell. Has been noted by some other folks that he is really kind of, what I would say is like that Luke Kuechly or Shaq Thompson role, sitting back, calling the defense, getting the defense lined up, getting them in place. I think with him out yesterday, I think you kind of saw a result of that with the defense just obviously, have been giving up a lot of rushing yards, but yesterday just looked even worse. Gave up a ton through the air. J.C. Horn was also out yesterday. Caleb Farley was in his place. I think Tampa Bay picked on him quite a bit. Mike Evans with a couple of touchdowns. One right against Caleb Farley. Just got them hands up, fought him into the end zone. Little 1 yard reception there from the goal line. And Not great. Not great. Like coming out for Farley, hoping like coming out with a nice start, hoping to showcase a little bit of what made him, I think, a first round pick a few years ago. But hopefully, I hope that Carolina doesn't really give up on him just yet. I think there's a lot more there, and I hope they can work with him in this offseason. But the big question, of course, I think is going to be going into this offseason, who's the defensive coordinator will be? Will it continue to be Evero, or will Carolina, will Dan Morgan and Canales decide to move on from Evero? It's very easy to kind of point and say, look, he didn't do what he needed to do with this defense to get them where they needed to be. You can also come back and argue that they really haven't had the players that they were expecting to have this year. So you got Derek Brown going out early, first game. He's been out all season. You lost Shaq at one early in the season. He's been out most of the season. And then, like I said, again, in this game, Josie Jewell, your leading linebacker, kind of leader of the defense, out today. JC Horn out today. Other folks just in and out all season long, and like really kind of who you expected to be the heart of this defense carry over some of the success they had last year into this season. Just not here all season long, and Carolina has really been hurt for that. But then you could turn around and point to teams like the Detroit Lions, who have lost, I think, 14 over an entire defensive side to injury. 14 players out and on the IR, not just like out for a game or two, but like out for the season. They've basically depleted an entire defensive side and still continue to win games. Now, most of those games recently are like both sides are scoring at pretty high rates, and Detroit's just managed to outscore their opponent. So, there's that. But you expect a little bit more, I think, from Evero, and I think a lot of people have expected more from him. And seeing where the Carolina defense is at this point, like a lot of people are really starting to push back and want to see some bigger changes than just going after that defensive tackle like Graham Mason, or maybe a defensive end like Abdul Carter in the draft with that first pick in the draft or that first round pick in the draft. And not only doing that, but also kind of switching out the defensive coordinator, and of course the scheme along with it, and bring in some new blood. But other notes from this game, I said earlier, Adam Thielen, 2 touchdowns this game. Impressive performance from him. One of the funnier moments in this game was the bittersweet punt attempt by the Panthers deep in their own territory, and a duck randomly showed up on the field next to the return man. I don't know if that played any part in what happened next, but Carolina just did not execute their punt correctly. Tampa was able to get back to the punter, block the punt, recover it, and just walk it right into the end zone for a special team score. So at the one hand, it was pretty funny, pretty cool watching this duck out there with, firsthand view of the game, but also as a Carolina fan, not what you wanted to see happen from that play. They did get the duck off the field, and the guy was able to kind of scoop her up and take her off and get her to where she needed to be safely and get looked at. I think they were saying that it did appear to be her, so they got it safe and looked at and taken care of. And let's see what else. Bryce Young, solid throughout this whole game. I've said before, I've said since he was drafted, I wanted to see a lot from Bryce Young. He's been showing quite a bit. There's still moments where you're like, what's going on here? Like, still sails a few balls here and there, but that's to be expected. Everybody does that. But really not helped a lot by, again, some of his receivers. Xavier Legette, 2 drop passes that, I'd say one drop pass right on his hands. And then another pass that if he had pushed on his route a little bit harder or maybe even like laid out for the pass, understood the situation of like, hey, look, you guys, you're in a position you need to start like really getting after these passes. The pass was a little beyond him, but I don't think it was so far beyond him that he could have laid out, especially as big as that guy is, as explosive as he is. I think he could have gotten that burst, laid out, grabbed pass, picked up a big first down. But both of them did not get those, pull those passes in, and ended up killing the Carolina drive that was going on. So who knows what could have happened there. At least kept Carolina out on the field, kept Tampa Bay off the field, since they were kind of running around doing whatever they wanted to at will. But now Carolina's got to look toward one more game. That will be against the Atlanta Falcons next Sunday. And we will see if they can kind of, I think, with a win against the Falcons, they're definitely eliminated from the playoffs. I don't know, even if the Falcons win on their own, if that's going to be enough for them to get into the playoffs. I think if Tampa Bay wins out next week, Tampa Bay's in, regardless of what happens with Atlanta and Carolina. But I do know that if Carolina beats Atlanta, that's it for Atlanta, and they're out. So, feelings kind of tempered there. Do we want to knock Atlanta out, get the nice win, keep them out of the playoffs, and risk potentially and most likely some draft position? I think sitting at number 6 right now, maybe number 7. Risk that, draft position, or go ahead and take the loss and kind of and maintain, if not possibly improve draft position. Obviously not going to make it up to number 1 at this point. But where they're sitting at right now, they could probably have a pretty good shot at a couple of strong players. But, if you're sitting at 4 or 5, you have a much better shot at, like I mentioned before, Graham or Carter, or if you wanted to look at that receiver core and beef it up and bring in a stronger receiver option, you could look at Ted McMillan from Arizona as well. So a lot of good options there. And of course, like I've said before, the draft really depends on the offseason, how free agency goes, where Carolina decides to spend their money this year, and where they're going to beef it up. If they're going to go after someone like T. Higgins in free agency, or trade for a receiver as well. So we'll see how that goes. And then if they try to dump some money into bringing in some more free agent defensive linemen to help out there. So we'll see how all that goes. Next up, we'll talk a little bit of our Carolina Hurricanes playing some average, literally, hockey since 2 weeks ago when last we spoke. But they did beat New Jersey Devils here the other night, 5-2. Again, seeing that common refrain, over 4 goals and they get the W. But they have had some other games, some close games, but they've all come out in the end. Over their last 6 games, 3-3, straight even 500. So kind of playing and maintaining their position, number 3rd in their division. Not a whole lot else going on, in my opinion, there. The next up will be against the Columbus Blue Jackets tomorrow night, New Year's Eve. Should be a pretty good game. I think they just played them, just lost, or Columbus coming off a loss to the Bruins, I think. So we'll see how that goes. Again, Carolina, I think their kind of ticket to getting ahead and getting the win is getting those goals in early and often. We saw a kind of reversal of that, though, against New Jersey, where it was a pretty tight game into the 3rd period, where Carolina just exploded for 4 goals. And and kind of like put on right at the very end and pulled away late from the Devils. So interesting to see how Carolina continues on. They've had a couple of really strong seasons if looking back on it, and you would hope to see that they continue their strong push this year as well. Let's see, last 3 seasons, all 50 plus wins, 52, 52, 54 plus wins. Points have been, up there in the hundreds. So far this year or this season, they're sitting at 22 and 13, 45 points. Like I said, puts them at third in the Metropolitan Division. So I think kind of looking at it now, though, where the Hurricanes are going to have to put on a little bit more of a streak, put on a little bit longer of a win streak, pick up some good points, and start to push to get back to the top of this division. It's going to be hard getting ahead of the likes of Washington, New Jersey. We just talked about they beat sits at the top of the division, and so we'll see how that goes. You get more wins against them, and you'll have pretty good chance to get pretty good shot at getting back up there. But right before that win, they dropped the game to the Devils 4-2. So you can't trade. And I think if I remember correctly, on the season, Hurricanes and Devils are evenly matched. So again, straight 500. There's regular season series tied at 2-2. So Carolina's got their work cut out for them. They're playing hard. They're in a good spot. But if they really want to start getting after it, make a push, have a strong entry into the playoffs, I think you're going to have to start pushing hard here sooner rather than later, instead of trying to play catch up down the stretch and make it up at the end. You really want to see them string together a nice handful of wins here and kind of get that push back to the top of the division. All right, moving on to our next set, the Charlotte Hornets. Not nearly what we would be hoping to see from them, obviously. Really had a hard lot to go with it over the last few games. Good news for them, they did get Ball back. The bad news is they've been 0-4 since. They are currently on, I want to say it's a 7-game losing streak. Not at all what you want to see, but maybe not a surprise either for this team. I don't know what to tell you. If you're a Charlotte Hornets fan, and you're in Charlotte, it's been rough these last couple of years. We just got done talking about how the Hurricanes have had a really strong couple of seasons, 3 50-plus win seasons in a row now. And Charlotte Hornets kind of the exact opposite and feeling more like the Panthers. Maybe it's just something down in Charlotte, but couldn't be the case. Charlotte FC were in the playoffs this last year. So looking at the Hornets over the last couple of seasons, 27 wins, 21 wins, on pace now for probably something pretty similar. So really really struggled over the last few seasons. Should see them picking towards the top again and of the draft again, and hopefully they can make the most of that situation, bring in some good talent there, and be able to start turning their fortunes around a little bit. I'd really like to get more into this. I've mentioned before, I'm not the biggest NBA fan, much more into college basketball. It's always felt, in my opinion, and probably less so this last 5, 10 years, 5, 6 years, it's always felt a little bit more pure. You have so many more styles. I feel like the NBA, you watch and you just see like these gigantic guys just running the court up and down, and just making like highlight plays all the time. You're running up scores into the 100s, 120s, 130s. Occasionally, I like to see some really good defensive efforts. I love the post play that the Tar Heels have played like for so many years now. But it's always interesting too to see them go up against smaller guard teams, see how they play. And I think you see a lot more diversity across the college landscape. I think more and more, one of the good things with all the transfers and stuff going on, more and more in college, you're seeing a little bit more parity. Some teams in the past where you wouldn't expect them, you'd expect quick and easy blowouts, and you're not getting those anymore. ACC, even like on the conference level, the power conference level, when I was coming out of college, Roy Williams was just taking over Carolina. You would just see, even in ACC play, some really like big blowouts from the top teams like UNC and Duke, playing some of the lower tiered teams who had not had traditionally strong basketball programs, and teams you would kind of expect to see get rocked by the Blue Bloods, UNC and Duke. But nowadays, those teams that traditionally hadn't had strong basketball programs have really developed and really put in a lot of work and have had really strong programs. And now you don't know from night to night what's going to happen, especially once, like I've said before, conference play opens up. You don't know. And this is probably a conversation for my next segment when we start getting to college sports. But I think for me, it's just a lot more exciting to watch college basketball. So I would like to get more into the pro side. I'd like to get behind the Hornets. I'd like to see them string together some wins, get some talent in, maybe go out in free agency this next offseason and pull in a name or two to help push them up a little bit more. Because I'd love to see Charlotte have some winning teams. That's what I've been hoping for with the Panthers. I'd love to see it with the Hornets, and I was excited to see it happening for the Charlotte FC this season. So being from North Carolina, hoping to go back to North Carolina one day, either someplace back to where I grew up, just north of Raleigh, or maybe settling down there near Charlotte. I would love to see some really good pro sports teams, get some good winning seasons under going for them. So really hoping the Hornets here can start getting some stuff together, start bringing in some talent, and really open it back up, and get back to get some winning seasons in there. Maybe start looking at the playoffs as well. All right, so that kind of wraps it up right now for our pro sports. We're going to take another quick break, have a couple more ads for you, and then when we get back, we will start talking about some college sports, a couple bowl games, a college football playoff game, and then we'll get into a little bit of college basketball as the season really as we start to kind of wind down the non-conference play and start getting into some good ACC conference play.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop, including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's happening, sports fans? Are you a fan of Southern California sports? Are you looking for a show hotter than a hot summer day in California? Then look no further than the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, where I talk about all things Southern California sports. That's right, all sports teams from Southern California. From the hard-hitting tackles of the NFL, to the killer crossovers and big three-pointers of the NBA and WNBA, to the grand slams of the MLB, to the bone-chilling goals of the NHL, and to the booming kicks of the MLS. The SoCal Supreme Sports Show has it all for you. Oh, and let us not forget about the college sports as well. So join me, Taryn Rodriguez, every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Again, be sure to check out SoCal Sports and our other stations because and continue to listen here to Carolina Sports Update on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. All right, let's get into some college basketball or some college football here. We'll kick it off, with my old favorite, the Carolina Tar Heels. Not the greatest thing, not the greatest news for them. Played in the Wasabi Fenway Bowl on the 28th. That was a rough game there, folks. If you are a Carolina fan and you put yourself through that, I applaud you. I managed to put myself through it as well. It was not a pretty sight. Obviously, Carolina missing quite a few people, especially on defense. But you also had Omarion Hampton, star running back, ACC leading running back. It was out. He is preparing for the NFL draft. Big congrats to him. Wish him the best of luck there. I personally am not one. I initially was one of those folks who got upset when players decided to skip out on a bowl game in order to prepare for the NFL draft, especially preparing for the NFL draft. I thought, look, you're committed to the school. You play for the school every game. And you show your commitment. If that's what you want to do, now I'm kind of the opinion. If that's what you want to do, I respect the hell out of you for that. I think that's fantastic. But if that's not, if you want to prepare for your career, then go ahead and prepare for your future career. You've earned it. Like, dude has played his butt off for the Tar Heels for the last several seasons. He has earned this spot. He has earned the right to go and get himself prepared mentally, physically for the draft. This is a huge, physical and mental interview for them where, they will engage and will be meeting with coaches and GMs. It is not just, show up and play football type of deal. There's a lot that goes into it. And, draft position is, vitally important to a lot of these folks because it determines, we think about, okay, it's millions of dollars no matter what, but, there's quite a bit of drop off, especially between the first, second, third rounds. And when you talk about a guy like Hampton, who's a running back, probably not expected to be, up that high just because of his position and the value that the league has put on that position. So good on him. I wish him the best of luck, tremendous amount of success going forward. With, some of the troubles the Panthers have had running back here lately, I don't expect Miles Sanders to be around any longer. Jonathan Brooks is going to be out for another season. Most likely, I don't see him coming back anytime next season, at least to put any kind of meaningful snaps in. So looking kind of depleted, and we saw that, Saturday or Sunday against Tampa Bay without Hubbard, who was out because of a calf strain and on the IR and is done for the rest of the season. We kind of saw that running game really fall off dramatically. So who knows? Maybe there's a shot that Hampton ends up staying in state, playing for the Panthers next year. I don't expect it. I expect the team's going to be focused elsewhere. But, one can hope. It would be great to see him come and just move down the way to Charlotte and play down there. Other news outside that game, we've talked a lot about Belichick, the hire there, and what that will mean for Carolina going forward. We've seen a lot of really interesting things happening in the transfer portal and recruiting already. Talked last time about Bryce Baker for freshman signee had originally held off on his signing with UNC, but then after the announcement of Bill Belichick as the new head coach, immediately signed with Carolina and expected to come in. So excited to see a 4-star quarterback prospect coming in. I think dual threat prospect as well. So that should be a lot of fun to see how that works out there. And we've talked a lot about the transfer portal too. So UNC is picking up quite a few players through the portal. Some of them have been pretty high profile. You've got offensive lineman Christo Kelly coming from Holy Cross. Looks like he'll add a really big boost there along the line. You got Miles McVay, offensive lineman from Alabama. So we got guys coming over from Alabama now. Quarterback Ryan Brown coming in from Purdue. We'll see how that works out, especially with Baker coming back. Still looking to see what happens with Criswell. He was, part of that lopsided game there against UConn was due large part to Criswell getting injured early. Looks like he hurt his left shoulder. Had to go out, never came back. So we'll see what he ends up deciding to do in this offseason if he goes into the portal. It looks like it could be a little bit of a crowded quarterback room coming into next year. And then I think, what was it? Some of the other, another big name, defensive lineman CJ Mims coming over from East Carolina, transferring here in state should be a really interesting pickup there. Then you've got, a lot of the guys who had entered the portal, pulling their names out of the portal. I mentioned it last time, linebacker Amari Campbell, one of the big names there. Running back Caleb Hood, huge name there. He just withdrew right before the bowl game. He'll be coming back. That'll be great to see him coming back next season. And then you got wide receiver Kobe Paysor. He'll be coming back as well. He's had some success here for Carolina, some inconsistencies as well. I like to see him get a lot more consistent. I think if he can become more consistent, especially with his hands and being able to pull in some of these catches, I think he will be a very good receiver for whoever's back there taking snaps next year. So that kind of rounds us up into like 15 players total between people who put their name in and then drew it back out and decided to stay, and people coming in committed so far to coming in, which sounds great, but unfortunately that is tempered by the fact that there are 14 departing via the portal, some of them pretty significant. One thing helped the quarterback room not stay so crowded. Connor Harrell looks to be transferring. And then you've got the kicker, Noah Burnett. Don't know how you feel about him coming or going. He's been, I'd say, adequate as a kicker. Not exactly the most clutch person, not the biggest leg either. But, not somebody you want with that kind of experience to leave. Michael Merdinger, also quarterback going into the portal, had announced actually before the bowl game that he would be transferring via the portal, and then ended up being called into play after Criswell went down. I think two of the bigger ones, though, that we've seen, especially after that bowl game, linebacker Ashton Woods and linebacker Caleb Lavalle going into the portal, especially Lavalle having played really well in the game. It's hard to say that in a loss, but I mean, they did hold UConn to 27 points. That could have been a lot worse. And I think a large part was his ability to, play tough, play really hard and all over. But so it is pretty unfortunate that we will see him transferring via the portal coming up. And then next up for them, spring game. So off season, see what Belichick comes in, what kind of culture, what kind of system he establishes, how he's going to run things. And we'll get our first glimpse of some Belichick football at Carolina coming up next spring. All right, let's take a look, talk a little bit now, just a very little bit about Duke football. They have yet to play their bowl game, so still waiting on them to get in and get their bowl game, but doesn't mean we don't have some news for them. So we talked last time, Malik Murphy had left. He is committed now to Oregon State, and so should be interesting to see how he performs there. But for Duke specifically, still waiting on his Taxslayer Bowl here in a couple days against the Ole Miss Rebels. I think that could be a really interesting game. Ole Miss, like we mentioned before, probably feeling a little slighted at being left out of the college football playoff picture. So, there's always a storyline, always curious to see how teams respond to that kind of stuff. Are they going to, not take their bowl game they ended up with as seriously and end up kind of phoning in their game and not playing as hard as they can? Or are they going to take it personally as a slight and really just throw everything they've got into their bowl game and try to actually absolutely destroy their competition? So Duke, I think, is going to have their hands full here. Still should be a really good game. Hopefully, State can pull out the state of North Carolina. Duke can pull out the W there and kind of make a statement for itself, get a little ACC action going, and get a W on the ACC side. All right, next up, let's talk a little bit about some NC State football. Probably the most interesting game to talk about from the bowl series so far. Right up there, I think, with Clemson's playoff game, where NC State, ECU, really tough kind of, I won't call it a back and forth game. ECU got up on them pretty early, 20-7. NC State, battled back into it, got back up. They got up 21-20. And then ECU finally with the touchdown late to secure the win, 26-21, with not exactly a walk-off touchdown, but what should have definitely sealed the game. And then, maybe not to the surprise of some, huge brawl breaks out. State players, ACU players going at it. Referees getting caught up in the mix. One of the refs getting hit in the head and bleeding, cut on the head, bleeding. Just, oh, what I would like to say as a Carolina fan, but a lot of heart and passion from the NC State side. Really frustrating season, I imagine, for them. A lot of fans came in talking that about the fact that NC State might have had a shot even at the college football playoff if they had played well, if they had gotten the wins that they were hoping they'd get. That they had a pretty good setup to be able to make a run at that playoff, but never came. Didn't get bowl eligible until the very last game, playing against UNC. Get into the bowl. Like I said, they were down early, fought back hard against ECU. Were up, looking to hope to snatch the win there late, and then to lose it there in the closing minutes. ECU just you understand like where that kind of passion, where that intensity comes from. And for these guys, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, that's going to come out sometimes, and it's hard to hold back. And definitely saw that that night. So big time news headline there with that fight breaking out. And our note from the NC State wide receiver Concepcion had entered the transfer portal. I saw a report where he actually came and met with UNC even, which I found to be pretty interesting, that he would have considered that, but actually ended up will land at Texas A&M. Pretty big move for him, I think. He has shown, a lot of talent, a lot of ability, both as a wide receiver in the run game. Really dynamic, really versatile player. He tore UNC up for 2 games. In particular, he's a handful this year. He was a huge handful last year. So game to go out there to Texas A&M and show what he's got, what he can do. That should be pretty interesting for him. And we'll see how he does there moving into the SEC ranks. And then finally, we have there we go. Finally, the college football playoff discussion. We've got Clemson playing University of Texas and not going, obviously, the way they would have wanted to go. Clemson losing that game 24-38. Cade Klubnik played a really good game against Texas. 26 of 43. You see it down there, 336 yards, 3 touchdowns, doing everything he can to try power Clemson through this game. But they just could not keep up with Texas. Watched the majority of this game. And, 38-24, that's a 14-point game. It's a pretty good gap. But even that, it didn't feel like it was even that close. It felt like a little bit more of a blowout than even 38-24. Texas got up early. Clemson got up early with the initial drive. Really nice, long, methodical drive. Scored on their opening possession. And then Texas just came back, though, and really kind of put it on Clemson for the next couple of quarters. Pushed that lead out early, and just kind of hung on from there, sitting out at about 14 points throughout the rest of the game, and just really kind of dominated and controlled the game throughout. Kind of traded blows a little bit with Clemson, like I said, not able to keep up and overcome that. So they are now out of the college football playoff, and they, like the rest of the ACC most of the ACC teams are waiting for their spring game next year. But we'll see how Sweeney handles the offseason. If he starts, mentioned last time, they were actually brought in a transfer player, a possible transfer player to meet with the team. So we'll see if they kind of change their tune from previous seasons and start bringing in some transfer players and see what ends up happening for Clemson next season. If they can return to being that kind of dominant team in the ACC and contending for a national championship again, where, like I said earlier, Clemson was coming in with a pretty good record, played through most of the season with a good record. But if you watch the games and kind of looked at, how some of the wins that they had were not in the same fashion, not quite as convincing as they had been in previous seasons. So we'll see how see if they can get back into the swing of things next year. See how they fare against SMU, who, took the regular season crown from them this year. And then SMU, we saw, also lost their playoff game by a wide margin, which to me, like all four of the initial playoff games, you looked at, it was last four in, 9 through 12, all essentially just not in the same league as the four teams they played. Notre Dame, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State all handled the lower seeds, SMU, Indiana, and Clemson, pretty easily. Tennessee pretty easily, really. And in my opinion, a 12-team playoff probably a bit much. You could probably scale it back to 18 playoff, but then I think you'd probably almost be in the same position where the top four teams would dominate the bottom four teams. I have yet to see, and still young, still early, but I have yet to see college football playoff in particular where a lower ranked team really has that much of a shot against a top seed, similar to how you would in the NCAA men's basketball tournament or NCAA basketball tournament, where you can get some Cinderella stories going and get some good upsets. I don't think you see that as much in college football as you do in basketball. So we'll see if this playoff can mature. If we can, like I mentioned before, with the conference basketball play, if we can get some more parity, get some more teams on the same level, and see a little bit more competition in the playoffs. But I think right now they're already talking about expanding to 16 teams. My opinion, if you just watch those first four games, probably pretty good sitting at 12. We don't need to expand that just yet. All right, let's take another quick break here. And before we roll into kind of our final wrap up, looking at some college basketball scores and highlights, and then we will kind of wrap it up with that. Sorry, there we go. Do. We'll talk to you guys here in a few minutes. All right.
Hockey fans, I'm Adam Kernick.
And I'm Zach Puplis.
Together, we are the newest version of Hockey Talk on IE Sports Radio, The Neutral Zone.
Zone.
We love hockey, but we also know it's not everyone's first sport. So we want to make this show as much for new fans as for the diehards.
Whether you can name all the Swedes on the 08 Red Wings Stanley Cup team, or if you can't tell if Varlamov is a goalie or the latest trendy vodka, we're here to help. With facts, figures, and outrageous fans, we bring you all the hard-hitting hockey news you can handle, while still keeping it fun and on the rails. Well, mostly.
So tune in every week as we go around the hockey world, from college to Canada, the minors and the majors, and everywhere in between.
So bring your cellies,
And your one-timers,
you wicked wristas.
and be sure to protect your 5-hole.
Catch the Neutral Zone every week on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
We promise not to pick on the Arizona Coyotes every episode.
What's up, everybody? This is Darren Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of Thunder Spikes? Then I have the show for you, Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
All right, welcome back to everybody to the Carolina Sports Update here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. All right, let's wrap this up. We got about 2.5 minutes to talk college basketball. So going forward, we'll actually have a lot more time to talk college basketball. But for today, we're going to try to keep it short and sweet. We've got a few games to cover here. First, we'll get into a little bit of UNC basketball. Tar Heels not playing, I think, to the caliber of what you would hope from what would you expect from this team. You know, if you're a UNC fan, you've been following them for, decades, you expect, a strong competitive team year in and year out with the ability, with this school's ability to attract, some of the top talent in the nation. That's kind of what you've come to expect. And, this season has, for many fans, been a bit of a letdown. You're already starting to hear people, again, kind of call out Coach Herbert. I've heard that a little bit at the beginning of last year. It kind of died down a little bit towards the end. But that you could call it an upset loss to Alabama in the tournament. It picked right back up. You definitely heard it the year before when they had such an awful year. But this year, we're kind of starting off with a little bit of the same. We've got 5 losses already. All of those, though, top 10 teams. These were not slouch teams that Carolina was playing early on. Would you have wanted to grab, 1 or 2 of those for Carolina? Obviously, you want to grab 1 or 2 of those so Carolina can, establish itself as a legitimate contender in the top 10, top 15 of the nation, but not able to do that. And it's really starting to get to a lot of the fans. They kind of were able to redeem themselves here recently against UCLA with another come from behind and got down early, but were able to come from behind and pull off the late upset win against UCLA. And then follow that up with a solid win against Campbell, the Fighting Camels. I had a couple of friends growing up in North Carolina who went to Campbell. It was a great school. No, hurt against them. No, not to insult them or anything, but I think they came in at 5-7. This should have been a game that Carolina just, romped and stomped, carried away, did whatever they want. Campbell kept it close early. Carolina was able to start to pull away a little bit, but even with I think it was a 16-point win, not what you've come to expect, as a Carolina fan. You'd expect to see that in the 20s or even higher. So seeing them not take care of business the way you would hope to against a team like Campbell, like I said, really starting to kind of get to Carolina fans. And I kind of get it, but at the same time, you're playing a totally new system, a new lineup. I think Davis still working out the kinks on how he wants to establish this lineup. But one thing I think he's figuring out here, and I think we're learning, is Ian Jackson, freshman guard. This kid is playing fantastic. He had 26 points against Campbell, which, okay, good. Like we say, kind of expect that against that team. But against UCLA, 24 points for Jackson really helped be that spark, him, along with RJ Davis, to bring Carolina back, get him back in that game, and helped him seal that win late. So seeing a lot of really great stuff from that guy. So, as with everything, you get a guy going like that, you really hope he avoids injury here. And then when we wrap up this season, as with every year with Carolina, you hold your breath and hope a guy like that stays around for maybe one more year. I'm not one of these guys who needs them to stay around for 4 years or whatever, but I like when you get, those repeat players. You get guys who've been there for 2 or 3 seasons. You get to know their name. You know who's out on the court. You recognize the players. When you're losing that guy every other year, it gets hard to really follow a team and get into it. So hopefully we see him come back. Another guy we did have seen come back and for a while now, RJ Davis, sets the 3-point record at UNC. He probably helped out a little bit by a 5th season. He was able to take advantage of his COVID year. He breaks Marcus Page's 3-point record, and now he owns that. So great job to both those guys. Really showing a lot of promise. Hopefully we see some more growth and development from Elliot Cadell as well. He showed some good stuff at the beginning of the season. I'm really hoping he can show some more good stuff here coming up soon. And we can start to put together a string of really strong wins. We're starting to get into conference play now, and that's exactly what you're, I think, looking for at this point. We'll move on. We'll talk a little bit about Duke here. They have been doing what Duke does and needs to do, taking care of business. Blowout win against Georgia Tech, 82-56 there. It was close-ish through the first half, but then got in the second half, and Duke just blew it open, really put the Yellow Jackets away in the second half. And it's a strong game from Duke. They've been playing well so far this season. They got the number 4 ranking in the nation because of it. I think we'll continue to see them play well here going down into ACC play. Their next game will be against Virginia Tech. I expect they'll take care of business there as well and not have too much trouble with Virginia Tech. I think South Carolina beat them earlier this year, so don't expect too much of a fight, sadly, from them. So we'll see how that goes, and continue to expect Duke to do Duke and really dominate the competition. Hopefully setting up, a nice clash between Duke and UNC come next month. All right, next, NC State. Finishing off some of their non-conference play. They played Rider. Also a nice blowout win for them, 89-63 there. Just continue to do what they need to do, keeping their win total up, loss total down, and they're riding right along with Carolina in the standings, sitting right around, where is it? 5th, 8-4. So, better record than Carolina, 1-0 in ACC play, 8-4 overall. So they're doing really well so far this season. We'll see them continue to, knock off, kind of refine, polish up their game here as they finish out their non-conference schedule and start rolling into some more conference games. First of which, at Virginia tomorrow night, New Year's Eve. We'll see how that goes. Virginia, probably not quite the same team we're used to seeing from the past several years. So I'll see how Virginia fares against NC State. That could be a pretty good game. Really good back and forth type of game. And we'll see how that turns out for the Wolfpack. All right, next up, got Wake Forest. Tough loss for them to Clemson. Clemson's had been playing pretty well. They gotten I think they were ranked as high as number 16 at one point. They've had a couple of losses. We'll talk about that here soon. That's kind of pulled them out of the top 25. But Wake Forest, 11 points. Basketball world, that's not a huge blowout. It's not a very good loss, but it is a pretty convincing win there for Clemson. Prior to that, though, Wake Forest with a nice W against James Madison, again, finishing up that non-conference play. Traditionally expect ACC teams to take care of non-conference opponents. We fortunately seen that here for Wake Forest before. Finally in conference play, they're now 1-1 in the conference. They're going to slip down a little bit in the standings, but not out of it. And we'll see if they can continue to battle through the season and see where they end up once things really get on the roll here. So, speaking of Clemson, they have had quite an interesting go of it as of late. Like I said, mentioned that they've had that win against Wake Forest, but then follow that with an overtime loss to South Carolina, who we'll talk about obviously in a few minutes as well. But 88-91, lost on a 3-pointer in overtime. That was an intense game, really back and forth there, and kind of a tough game for them to lose in the end. Clemson, South Carolina, both actually showing a lot of early season promise. They could, I think, do some pretty good damage this year. I could see them both. I don't know how high up you'll see South Carolina get. The SEC as a whole has been playing very well. And South Carolina, even though they sit at 9-3, better record than UNC, better record than State. Let's see, better on par with Clemson, who Clemson at 10-3 sits at number 3 in the ACC. South Carolina at 9-3 is dead last in the SEC. You've got 3 undefeated teams in the SEC: Florida, Oklahoma, Tennessee, all undefeated, followed by 4 one-loss teams, and then 2 loss teams all the way down to South Carolina. So with 3 losses, the only 3-loss team in the SEC, and that's bad enough to put them dead last. We'll see how Clemson bounces back from that loss to South Carolina on that late 3-pointer as they play Stanford, open up ACC play. That's sad to say, against Stanford. Stanford's in the ACC, but Clemson will continue ACC play, really get in the heart of ACC play against Stanford here later this week. All right, finally, let's talk a little bit about South Carolina. They're kind of surprise basketball program, and really kind of funny, making one of the more unique headlines I've seen so far, especially this week, but so far, especially in college basketball in particular. ESPN headline: South Carolina uses Big Finish to earn come from behind win over Radford, 74-48. That was a come from behind win. And yes, it was a come from behind win because in the second half, South Carolina trailed Radford 40-42, and then went on a 34-6 run to absolutely destroy Radford in the end. That's a score that lopsided to be dubbed a come from behind win is pretty nuts, but just shows you, like I said, why I love college basketball so much, because you have a team like Radford against a 9-3 team like South Carolina, hanging with them up until, the start of the second half, several minutes into the second half, be ahead, and then somehow inexplicably just get shut down and not score, and only score 6 points through the rest of the game, while South Carolina scores 34. It's just nuts how variable college basketball can be, and it's one of the reasons why I love it. Why I could probably sit and watch non-conference, non-Carolina teams and just enjoy watching the game and how things play out. So, but with that, I think we'll wrap it up from there. South Carolina's next game against Presbyterian. That's tonight. Should see, well, maybe another come from behind blowout, but should see them be able to take care of business there before maybe they can take on some of these SEC teams and earn their way up to the top a little bit, right? And get taken a little bit more serious, like be able to get themselves back, get up there in the SEC. All right, that's going to do it for me, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me. I know it's been a long hour. We look forward to meeting with you guys again some more in the new year. Look forward to seeing how the Panthers handle their off season. Try to bring in some draft content, some free agency, and some draft content. Talk a little bit of news for that, and then start getting ready for some soccer. I think coming up soon. That should be pretty awesome. I know preseason games happening in February, and then we get to roll into March. Start looking. One of my favorite things, NFL draft, and see how things go from there. With that, I will talk to you all later.